What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media tonight. My name is Ryan Linkletter, and I'm here with fantasy football guru Danny Carpenter. Danny, how we doing tonight?
Doing good, Dad. Doing well, doing well.
Yeah, first time here. I have not actually been in the car doing this over the last like 2 or 3 weeks, so it feels comfortable, not bouncing up and down, having to worry about any sort of connection problems. We'll be stable here tonight, hopefully, without anything going crazy. So JC's in here, no buffering today. We are back. We should have no more problems with the buffering the rest of the season. My crazy travel days are over, so we don't have to worry about that. But like I said, enjoy being here every single Saturday. Next week, we will bump back to Sunday mornings with no overseas games. So we will have a Sunday morning show next week for those of you guys already paying attention to that. But we are here to answer all of your questions, and we are going to start with Jared Fortin here. Please pick one in PPR. Kamani Vidal versus the Colts, Cooper Kupp versus the Texans, Chris Moore versus the Dallas Cowboys, Travion Henderson versus the Tennessee Titans, Jalen Waddle versus the Browns, and Jawan Jennings versus the Atlanta Falcons. Danny, that's a big grouping right there. Who are you going with out of that group?
I'd probably go with Vidal and probably Waddle. I know the Waddle situation. I know a lot of people are probably scared about the weather in Cleveland and the games. Probably, the winds are supposed to be around 20 miles an hour. I mean, that can affect the deep ball game, passing game, but Miami doesn't throw the ball deep, so I don't think it affects Waddle really too much, and he's still their number one guy. Vidal, just because the number of touches he got last week, he's their number one guy running the ball out of the backfield and stuff right now. Kupp, I just don't trust enough against that Texans defense. Moore, I know he's played the most snaps of those secondary guys since McLaurin's went down, but he's also the lowest price guy of the three for in DFS, which kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. And Henderson, I just don't know what they're going to get with Henderson and how they're breaking up the snaps and stuff and then touches with Ramondre. So I would go with this. I'll go Vidal and Waddle on that. Jennings, he's been hurt. Until he's healthy, don't play him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you definitely have some solid options here. I think the biggest ones that I'm deciding between are Jalen Waddle and Kamani Vidal. And I wanted to look this up. Obviously, you talk about the weather in this Cleveland
Yeah.
Browns game, and you guys will see that on the ticker below. That in Chicago has some bad weather expected. The over and under total for that game is 35 and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
The over and under total for the Chargers and the Colts is 48 and a half, Danny. That's a significant difference between those
Yes,
games.
very.
And Kamani Vidal is one of my must-start running backs this week. 100-plus total yards in the first week as a starter. Caught a receiving touchdown, had 18 of 24 possible carries with Amari and Hampton out. He was the clear lead back last week, and he gets a Colts defense that, while they've shown flashes of good defense over times this season, their running defense isn't nothing that jumps off the charts in my mind. Kamani Vidal's workload is going to be nice, and I think if the Chargers are going to try to exploit something, it will be on the ground against the Colts, and I absolutely love Kamani Vidal's matchup this week. So out of that grouping, I'm going with him in there. Asher, what's up tonight? Appreciate you joining in. Bill or Swift at RB2? Danny, go ahead and start with this one. I like both their matchups. I'll say that.
I like them both as well too. This one's actually pretty tough. I probably lean Swift, just the fact that may have some weather there and stuff, and he's played well. And Swift's one of those guys when he plays well and stretches. He did it last year. Had a big game last week. A lot of times he follows it up with another big game. So I'd probably go him here, but Bill's a great spot this week. Dallas defense is just awful. There should be plenty of fireworks both sides of the ball right there. Just the fact that the Dallas Cowboys offense is rolling as well, and their defense sucks. So they're going to have to score points and push the ball down the field. So that's going to be a fun game to watch in the afternoon tomorrow.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are, riding the Commanders right now despite their injuries at receiver. I'm actually on the Cowboys side of things in terms of where I'm going in terms of my pick this week. And I think that, that's despite I think Jaden Daniels and Bill are going to have monster games in the ground. It's a great matchup for them. The Cowboys, while they're really bad against the pass, well, they're really bad against the run too. Like Rico Dowdle absolutely shredded this defense last week. And I think the biggest difference between these two guys is that DeAndre Swift's production last week feels like an outlier of what he's done this season. Like his efficiency and per game basis has just been really bad. And I understand New Orleans is one of the better matchups for running backs, but they're not like a top 5 matchup like the Dallas Cowboys defense has been on the ground this year. So I think Bill, who played a season high 67% of snaps last week, has started to get more involved in this offense on a weekly basis. I like him just a little bit more than DeAndre Swift. I know what I'm getting with Swift, but I'm chasing the upside with Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt in this one. And while I do think that the Bears offense will have a nice day despite the weather conditions in Chicago, I think that Bill's upside in this game where you have your top two receivers out in this matchup, Jaden Daniels and Bill are going to have a nice game on the ground for the Commanders to win this ball game. So I'm going to ride with Bill. I think that they are very close, but I think Bill has the higher upside in that matchup for you. Appreciate you tuning in, Asher. Frizz, what's up? Welcome back tonight. Would you start Jameson Williams, Woody Marks, or Mason Taylor in the flex? Oh, man. Danny, I don't know what you're going to say, but I absolutely love Mason Taylor's matchup this week. I don't know if I'd go him in here, but who are you going with?
Yeah, it's between Mason and Jameson. Mason Taylor's matchup is great this week. The Panthers are
So good.
awful against the tight ends, and there's not going to have all the receivers going to be out too. So, drawing a blank. I already got him off my spreadsheet. Tells you anything already?
Yeah,
Garrett Wilson. Garrett
Wilson's
part. Yeah, he's out. He's not going to play. So Mason's matchup and just the fact that he's probably going to be the number one target in that offense is probably the way to go. I mean, Jameson is so hit and miss this year compared to last year where he was a little more consistent. Now this year he's relying on the big play, and that hasn't happened as much this year as they've been a little more methodical getting the ball down the field.
Yeah. I think the biggest one, like I just made sure before I just spewed numbers to you guys, Mason Taylor over the last, 3 weeks, his first read target share has jumped by a whole 10% over that period. Like he has evolved in this offense to be that second best pass catcher, that guy. And he had two really solid performances in fantasy football in back-to-back weeks. Obviously, last week against Denver was Justin Fields in a nutshell as a quarterback. I mean, that was a brutal performance from him. So it was not ideal by any means, but I think you have to like what his upside is. But it's Jameson Williams for me. Woody Marks, I'm not even considering right now. I think the Seahawks defense has been really good this year.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams upside against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary that's allowed explosive plays at a high rate this year, bottom 10 in the NFL in yards per attempt per pass allowed. I absolutely love him as a boomer bust option. And, he cashed in last week. I had him as a sit against the Chiefs, and he had a few catches and caught a touchdown. So, he cashed in on that performance. I think for the first time this season, Jameson Williams might have two strong performances, and plus the Lions are back at home. Yeah. I understand the Lions are very focused on last week's game and not this week's game in the media, but I think their offense will be prepared to have a nice day against Tampa Bay, and they should be able to bounce back in this matchup. Getting back to JC here, Jalen Hurts or Justin Herbert, 4-point passing touchdown league. Danny, who you going with?
Ugh, that's a tough one right there. Probably Herbert right here. Just the fact that Minnesota's defense is actually probably the better of the two defenses. That's literally almost a coin flip. I'm struggling really to say, but I'd probably lean Herbert just a little bit. But Hurts also gives you that running ability. I mean, you get down to the goal line and the tush push comes into play. So you're almost grab a quarter, heads, tails, go for there.
Listen, I don't even think this one's close. In my mind, it's because of the tush push.
Yeah.
The tush push makes Jalen Hurts have one of the safest floors in fantasy football. Every week he gets pushed in the end zone and there's 6 fantasy points. This guy can throw for $130, 1 passing touchdown, and have a tush push touchdown. There's his 20 points right there. Like Jalen Hurts consistently finds ways to get that 20-point mark. Since week 2 of the NFL season, Justin Herbert has been a very volatile fantasy football quarterback. And yes, last week against Miami had a few splash plays. That's literally the worst defense in the NFL. It's Miami Dolphins. Outside of the Dolphins, there has been defenses that have taken advantage of what the Chargers have struggled with, which is their pass protection. Obviously, Joel Alt's out, Rashawn Slater's out for the year. Justin Herbert struggled a little bit. I think defenses are making adjustments to this team because for the first time ever, we've seen a Greg Roman team become a pass-first offense. And, through the first 2 weeks of the year, it was, the Chargers, they're a run-first team, we'll rely on stopping that run game, focus on everything else. No, the Chargers flipped the script early on this year. They're able to take advantage of that, and they started hot. I can't say the same thing with the confidence in the Chargers passing game. I understand the frustrations with the Eagles. I understand Minnesota is a tough matchup, but the Eagles have so many tough players to defend. And a lot of the time with Jalen Hurts, his floor is so high because of that tush push. I just have a hard time benching him. And the only guys I would bench him for this week are Daniels and Mahomes. Outside of that, I think everybody else I'm not trusting as much as I will with Jalen Hurts. Sure, his upside isn't as high as it has been in years past, but Jalen Hurts can't go wrong with the tush push merchant himself. Next question for JC here. How are we feeling about Doubtable with Chuba Hubbard back, Danny? What are your thoughts?
I think they split carries. I mean, the old adage is that you don't lose your job by an injury and stuff. I'm thinking they're going to give Hubbard a chance to say, "Hey, can you prove yourself what Dowdle's done?" And if he can't do it, then Dowdle's probably going to start to take the majority of the touches. But they're still going to probably split carries. It can be anywhere from 60 to 40, 50-50 this week. So who knows what really is going to go on with Hubbard's injury with what he had the past few weeks. Dowdle's just produced the last couple of weeks, so you got to continue. Got to give him the rock at least a few times in the game, the more than he did beginning of the season compared to what he did the last couple of weeks when he dominated the touches for them in the backfield. But I think they split this week, and it's probably going to be close to 50-50.
Yeah, I saw a report out there the last 2 days at practice. The first running back to take snaps for the Carolina Panthers was Chuba Hubbard. So it looks like Chuba, who got a big time contract extension from this team last year, is still the team's lead back heading into this week. Before, Rico Dowdle's breakout games. And I'll kind of go off on a tangent here. Dowdle deserved to be a starting running back in the NFL this season. What he showed in Dallas towards the end of the year, and I'm so surprised the Cowboys just didn't pay him money to become a starter. He showed that he can be a starter in this league, and I thought Carolina made a good move by adding him, but his utilization to start the year was poor. Like, they were rarely using this guy enough. He was playing around that 30% snap share, which wasn't ideal. I do think the number, like you mentioned, could be close to that 50% mark, but I fully expect that Chuba Hubbard opens this week as the team starter. I don't know what his workload will look like. I'm expecting a 55-45 type split, and I know their matchup is solid. I want to make sure, like, New York has been, outside of last week, they played really well against J.K. Dobbins. They were one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL entering last week against the Broncos, limited J.K. Dobbins. So we'll see if that's a trend to come, but if Rico Dowdle can't cash in on 8 to 10 touches, he could be in for a bust performance. Same thing with Chuba Hubbard. So with Carolina's backfield, I know some people are in a situation where you have to start one of them. I would just be very cautious on what to expect this week. They're going to have to rely on a touchdown, kind of like Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter have been in Arizona to be productive this weekend. I'm very interested to see how it works out. I think Dowdle might be the more talented back. I'm not going to – Chuba's been fine this year, but I think it's a true 1A, 1B situation forming in Carolina. Todd, how we doing tonight? Fannin in bad weather, Mason Taylor or Hunter Henry, PPR. What are your thoughts?
If he's scared of Fannin in the bad weather, which I'm not, I'd rather start Fannin myself. But I would take Taylor over Henry this week. Fannin and Taylor are actually 2 and 3 on my spreadsheet. Let me look here real quick. Yeah, Fannin's 2 and Taylor's 3 on my spreadsheet this week for DFS wise. So I would stay with Fannin personally, but Taylor's a great option too. And I'll probably be playing both in DFS and the double tight end sets this week for my lineup. So I have no problem with either one of them. Henry's a little bit down this week. I'd rather go with the young guys on this one.
Yeah, see, I agree with you with Hunter Henry. I think he's a bust play this week. The Titans have been pretty good against tight ends this year, and it's between Taylor, a guy we already talked about that I really like, or Harold Fannin, another guy that's a must start for me this week. And I think the difference with Fannin is since Dillon Gabriel took over, the targets have been there. Like 2 really good weeks, 10-plus points, back-to-back weeks. Njoku's out in this one. And if anything, I think the weather conditions actually help Harold Fannin in the underneath game. He's going to be a guy that sees more targets underneath compared to like a guy like Jerry Jeudy on the outside or Isaiah Bond. Like those type of guys are going to probably struggle in these conditions. I think Gabriel finding Fannin is probably going to be the most effective passing game this team has. And they have a favorable matchup against a Miami defense that we just talked about has been absolutely abysmal this year. And Oronde Gadsden, the rookie tight end from the Chargers, had a really good breakout game last week against this defense, and he was basically non-existent before that. So I think Harold Fannin's the guy that you go with in that one. Trey, welcome to the chat. What's up? How we doing? Sam Darnold is actually not the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's been playing pretty good this year. We'll give you that one. J Dabs here, PPR, tight end premium. Stick with Tucker Kraft or pivot to Zach Ertz with a good matchup with the Debo and Terry injuries. Danny, what are your thoughts?
Well, Ertz has gone into the game with an injury as well too, so that's why these the young guys have been getting a lot of pop when it comes to DFS this week and stuff. But I would probably still lean Kraft. I mean, he's still their guy. Arizona's always been notoriously not being able to stop tight ends, so I wouldn't change that on that part. I mean, Ertz maybe he's his 2 biggest games this year. He's actually scored touchdowns in those games. He doesn't score a touchdown. He's probably not going to be good enough to be a tight end 1 for the week unless he has some big numbers. But with Debo out and McLaurin out, it's very possible, but I would still lean with Kraft in this situation.
Yeah, I'm going with Tucker Craft too. He's my tight end 5 this week. I think against Arizona, a defense that's been, I don't want to say underwhelming, but they just haven't lived up to the expectations I thought they'd be at. This year they're 2-4 at this point. Kyler Murray's out again. This team is really trying to find a spark, and they just haven't had it. I think Tucker Craft is going to be in for a nice game, and you kind of nailed it with Zach Ertz. I think he's been very touchdown dependent this year, and when he's been forced to be this team's number 1 or number 2 option, defenses are having a lot easier time keying in on him. He scored last week on one of the easiest routes I've ever seen. Like Bears are horrible at covering tight ends.
Wide open.
Cowboys aren't much better at covering tight ends, but they are at least going to try to key in on Zach Ertz because they know they're a big part of their game plan. So I think the Cowboys will have a better plan for him in Tucker Craft. Although I like Ertz's matchup, he's the guy that I go with there. Second question from him here: do I stick with Olave or risk Emeka Egbuka on Monday night with Cam Johnson as a contingency?
You got to play Olave. I mean, he's getting targets and stuff. I mean, the weather may be a little bit of a hamper on his stats this week, possibly. And the Bears have actually played better at home on defense, too. I don't want to take a chance. I don't think Ibuka's going to play. It's a hamstring injury. They're getting Mike Evans back. So I don't think they rush Ibuka back. And between Cam Johnson and Tez Johnson, I'd rather have Tez. Tez saw more snaps last week and stuff. Cam just caught the big catch early in the game where Tez caught the game winner for him last week. So yeah, or last week, yes. But I would stick with Olave. I mean, he's putting up the numbers, he's getting the volume. I'd stay with him.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with Emeka Egbuka. I thought there was no chance that he would be suiting up this week, but game time decision, it's kind of putting people in flux. And now I think that if you're in a situation where you don't have a guy like Chris Olave and you're sitting there with Emeka Egbuka and you're deciding between, like, I don't know, Alec Manor or
Mhm.
like a Sterling Shepard. Like you go with that Emeka Egbuka and you just play like a Sterling Shepard. But having Chris Olave, a guy's matchup that I really like this week, I think you got to trust him. Like the volume has been there for him. I think despite the weather conditions in Chicago, like they're going to throw the ball well. And Spencer Rattler, I think, gets a lot of bad rep. Uh, Obviously, his record's not very good. I don't think he's a good NFL quarterback, but Kellen Moore has him looking decent right now.
And he's actually one of the most accurate passers in the league right now, too. So that's kind of helping him. I know they don't take a lot of deep shots, but if you can get somebody like Olave who can run the underneath routes well and the outs and ends very well, and timing passing's there, he can score a lot of points for you in a hurry in DFS. I mean, in fantasy.
Yeah, Olave, I think Olave's floor is kind of what he's playing at right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have the injury concerns with him, but he is due for some more valuable targets down the stretch here and should be a big time contributor the rest of the season for the Saints if he is on the Saints. So I would go with Olave in that situation. Shout out to James Monroe joining the chat tonight, one of our Blitz Hall of Fame members. Rashee Rice or Deontay Thornton. We all know the Deontay Thornton truther is going with Deontay Thornton, but I do think it's a good point to kind of talk about Rashee Rice in general. Rice, he's back. He's a wide receiver 1. He has to be in your lineup. No questions asked. There's probably only a handful of guys that are higher than Rashee Rice this week against a Raiders secondary that has struggled this year. I expect no limitations from him in this matchup this week. Todd, another question here. Woody Marks, Michael Carter, Bam Knight, or RJ Harvey? Geez, that is a RB3 just, I don't even, hurricane right there of running backs. What are your thoughts on these guys?
Mark's got the tough matchup. Since Seattle's defense is actually still pretty decent. I mean, they're beat up on the secondary side, but their front seven is still pretty good. Carter and Bam, the Packers, they have a good defense, and those guys are splitting. I mean, you're not going to get a whole lot of fantasy points. I'm going to go with Harvey here. The last time they played against a team where they were like a 7-point home favorite, Harvey got his most touches this season and scored 18 points in that game. He had 5 catches or 4 catches for like 40 yards and a touchdown, and he ran for like 58 yards in that game. So I'd probably lean Harvey here just because somebody you may just need to stick in there as your flex spot, and I think he can probably score some points for you this week if they get a big lead and he touches the ball a little bit more.
Listen, I'm an RJ Harvey truther. I think we all know this. For those of you guys that have tuned into the stream multiple times and been through the entire offseason with me, RJ Harvey is a good football player. He hasn't had the opportunities that he needs. And Sean Payton said this week that I need to find more ways to get RJ Harvey the ball. Whenever RJ Harvey gets the ball, he has a chance to break one free. This is coming after a J.K. Dobbins 14 carry for 40-yard performance against the New York Jets. So I think RJ Harvey could have a breakout game against the Giants, but I would go with the safe play this week. And I know that I have Carter, Bam, and Woody Marks as guys I don't want to touch this week. But I just can't trust RJ Harvey's volume. Sean Payton basically is a really hard player to or coach to trust, except for his top player, and that's Cortland Sutton. Outside of that, you have no clue where the fantasy football value is going to go. So out of those guys, I'm leaning Bam Knight, but I wouldn't blame you if you went RJ Harvey because the upside with RJ Harvey this week against the Giants, it truly is something where it could be his breakout game. Appreciate you tuning in tonight. Thank you for the nice words. Hope to see you next week on Sunday. Kyle Muse in the chat. Do you think about me now and then? Kyle is actually on the stream post Sunday Night Football, Chiefs and Lions yelling "Go Bears" in the background. So shout out to Kyle for making the stream in there. Let's get to Ismaili here. My opponent has Josh Jacobs, and I picked up Emmanuel Wilson, but I have Mason, Rico, and Monty. Start 2, please. Thanks. 0.5 PPR. The Josh Jacobs thing is interesting. I would be very surprised to see Jacobs miss, but I mean, I've seen crazier things. Listen, Kamani Vidal coming off the practice squad and just being RB1. The same thing with Michael Carter. Like, some things are unpredictable, but I do like the running backs he has here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Mason, Rico, any of them actually start 2. So I probably lean Mason and Rico on this one on that part. Just the touches that they have. I know Detroit's getting back home a little bit. Monty's been kind of hit and miss as the season goes on, and it's nice picking up Wilson. So that way, if Jacobs would happen to be out, which I don't think he will. I mean, we'd heard something from one of the big guys already saying, "Hey, he's a game time decision," and we haven't really heard anything. So I think he's playing on that part. So Wilson's probably out of the question. I would go with Mason and Rico, unless you get some kind of word of what's going to happen between Rico and Hubbard on that part. So that way you could switch over to Monty if you had to.
Yeah, and I think this would be almost like, we saw Jaylen Warren. I think that's the better example for Josh Jacobs. And thank God this game is not an international game and people have to scramble or just forget about him in their lineups. But listen, he's full practice the entire week.
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine. But if you have to go with a different guy, I would go with Jordan Mason. I absolutely love that matchup against the Eagles, who have been a sneaky bad run defense this year at times. And I would go David Montgomery. Montgomery has a good matchup against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that is 9th in yards after contact this year and is bottom 10 in terms of rushing yards allowed. So 2 guys that I really like, 0.5 PPR, should be nice plays for you there. If Agabuka plays Monday night, is he a must start? Also have Scat or Dowdle. I think if you're deciding between Emeka, Scat, or Dowdle, I would go Scat. But I also think that if Emeka plays, I'm not sure he's a must start. And this will probably be one of those situations where it's like Emeka Agabuka is limited and then he plays every single snap like it happened earlier this year. But a guy coming off a hamstring injury where we expected to be an IR candidate playing a significant amount of snaps on Monday Night Football seems a bit unrealistic, and I don't think he can match his normal production. So I'm not super confident in Emeka Agabuka on Monday night if he does wind up suiting up. I do think with Scat and Dowdle, I don't love Scat's matchup this week, but I do think that he has a better chance of having a better day than Rico Dowdle because he has a rushing quarterback who at least is going to make it a little bit harder on the Denver Broncos defense to key in on one guy in the ground game. What are your thoughts?
I'm 100% right there with you on that call right there. Scat it's going to get more touches, plain and simple, and you need volume in the NFL and in fantasy football. And with Ibuka's questionable stuff, I don't want to take a chance going on Monday night and to scramble and try and pick up one of those young wide receivers they have for him and hope for the best. And Scat's already scored 15 points because he's had 5 or 6 catches, 50 yards receiving, 50 yards rushing, and you're set for the week with that position.
Yeah, 100%. Back to the Josh Jacobs stuff real quick. If Josh Jacobs is out for some reason, we smashing Emmanuel Wilson as a start. 1 trillion%. If Emmanuel Wilson is on the waiver wire right now, you might as well go sprint to it and add this guy as quick as possible. I'm actually going to make sure that he is gone because I haven't done that in every single league right now. So I'm going to let Danny talk a little bit. But I saw this earlier today, and I just made sure. But it's
Oh, they
still
just
full
announced.
practice. The thing is, it's like the full practices the entire week are a better
Yeah.
indication for me that he has a stronger chance of going. But it is very, very difficult to predict whether or not Josh Jacobs is going to be out there this week. Todd's here. Should I be scared of Ted McMillan this week against Sauce, or should I play Bourne, Taylor, or Shepard over him in the flex? Go ahead, Danny.
I'm starting Tet. I mean, Sauce struggled against Pickens a little bit. I mean, Pickens had that big long touchdown pass and stuff, but I think last week's game kind of showed us what Tet could do this week. Bourne's not a bad play, but I don't know how healthy Jennings is right now. Bourne's probably still their top guy. Taylor and Shepard, I'd still be Tet's better than both of those guys. So the only person I really can maybe question putting in that line would probably be Bourne, but I'd stay with Tet. I mean, I know the matchup's kind of tough. Sauce is one of the better defenders, but he's prone to give up good big plays, and Tet could have a 40-yarder and touchdown and have 3 or 4 more catches and be well worth it.
Yeah, I think that Tet is he's actually a sit for me this week. And I've been on the Tet McMillan must start train here for a couple weeks, but I think with Tet, you have to, consider the matchup. He needed 2 touchdowns last week. He only finished with 3 catches for 29 yards, didn't have any touchdowns heading into last week. But this week against the Jets, like it is a tough matchup with just Sauce Gardner in general. Completely blanketed Cortland Sutton last week, and then Ted McMillan gets him this week. He's the lone bright spot of that Jets defense. A guy that I would, be sneaky interested this week is Jalen Coker. Sneaky
Yeah.
flex play for a lot of formats in a favorable matchup as he returns from IR. But I would be hesitant about Ted McMillan. Out of the guys that you have there, I still have him ranked higher. The guy is still has great metrics. Like his target share is elite. His air yard share is elite. Like he's still a good player, but the matchup is tough. Still would like him over those guys. Another question here is Sharp a drop and keep Tajay Spears because I have to make space for a kicker. Mason Sharp, Dowdle, Monty, Henderson, Emmanuel, Tajay, 2-4 record and a must-win game. Who are you going with and who are you dropping here, Danny?
Yeah, I have no problems on Charbonnet. I mean, that running game's a mess right now. I mean, he's got more touchdowns than Walker the third does, but you can't trust the running game right now. So I think he would have no problem dropping in keeping Tajay Spears on that part. Tajay, he's just finally starting to get healthy enough that you can actually see if he's going to be able to be a counterpart to Pollard in that line in that offense. And plus, since the coaching changed too, who knows what the offense is going to look like? They may pass a little bit more, and Spears is more probably the better receiver than what Pollard is at his age.
Yeah, listen, Tony Pollard honestly gets a bad rep for being a bad running back. Like the guy's top 15 in every efficiency mark that you want. But the bad part about Tony Pollard is they don't ever play in positive game scripts. And now they have a new head coach. Who knows what's going to happen with him? I would hold Tajay Spears and see what potentially happens at the trade deadline for, a running back needy team potentially trying to get Tony Pollard. Charbonnet, I know what I'm getting. Zero efficiency is going to play 50% of the snaps, has no upside unless Kenneth Walker goes down.
Yeah.
I think just to make space this week, I would drop Charbonnet, obviously, Emmanuel Wilson. You know what you could do too is you could see what happens. Obviously, Packers game's at 3:25. We might have an indication close to kickoff at the 12 o'clock slate. You make a decision at 11:30. I'm obviously Central Time, so maybe it's 12:30 or whatever time it is. But you could make a decision as close to kickoff. If Emmanuel Wilson is not the starter this week, you just go ahead and drop him. If not, you want to wait and see. Go with Sharp. Not much to lose in that situation. Brandon here. Ashton Jeanty or Brian Thomas Jr. Danny, can I start with this one, please?
I'll go right ahead on that one.
Folks, time has come. It may have taken 4 weeks for it to happen, but a player that I was super high on this offseason has finally shown signs of life. And that player is Brian Thomas Jr., who was a top 5 wide receiver last year. All he had to do, Danny, he leads the NFL in first read targets this year. All he had to do was just catch the targets and 2 straight fantasy games. And he even had a touchdown called back last week.
Yeah.
Schedule gets better. Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence are starting to click. Obviously, the passing game is hit or miss, but the talent is there. And Brian Thomas Jr. as a matchup that I like against this Los Angeles Rams secondary this weekend. Whoo, Danny, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be in for a top 5 performance this week in fantasy football. Call me an idiot, call me what you will, but I am starting Brian Thomas Jr. over Ashton Genty, where the Las Vegas Raiders are not going to be rolling out a ton of options where the Chiefs are going to say, hey, we got to stop these guys. And typically, what the Kansas City Chiefs do is they take what you're best at and they take that away on offense. And that's Ashton Genty right now. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, they're so beat up right now. I mean, Jacoby Myers is beat up right now, so you don't really have another guy. The Chiefs are coming to that game as 11.5-point favorites. So is there really going to be chances for him to have an explosive running game? Probably not. I mean, he may have to rely on getting some dump off passes as the game goes on. And Gino's been so inconsistent and turnover prone this year that and it's in KC that they could just eat them alive and Genty be non void for the rest of the game because there's nothing really he can do because they're so far behind they got to pass the ball. So the only thing you have is just the dump passes, and by that point you got to push the ball down the field, and the dump pass is not really going to help you that much. BTJ, I got him in one league. I've been starting him even through the bad times right now. You just have to start him because of the talent, and hopefully he's one of those guys where
getting better. The times are getting better.
Yes, exactly, and he may be one of those guys where he just be a slow starter. I mean, last year he wasn't that big.
That is very true. Yeah,
yeah, until like week 7, he finally went off, and he played great the rest of the season. So he just may be a slow starter in the NFL, or just he's one of those guys that need a few games to get something underneath his belt to adjust the way players play him and stuff, and he just figures stuff out. So it could be just that happening as well with him too. So I go BTJ, no problem at all right here.
Yeah, see, if you guys didn't notice, I was looking down and checking all my leagues for Emmanuel Wilson just to make sure I had him. And Kyle's obviously in my home league, and we're both looking for Emmanuel Wilson, and somebody already scooped him up before us. Great time. So, for those of you guys that are able to cash in or haven't done it yet, make sure you grab Emmanuel Wilson off of waivers as quick as possible. We both think Josh Jacobs is going to play, but the chance that Josh Jacobs doesn't play, you need to start Emmanuel Wilson. So go ahead and grab him. We're going to get to the next question here. We buy homes near you, 512. Hopefully, if you're looking for a home near the 512, you can pick up a nice home from this guy right here. And he's going to need a solid defense. He's got Green Bay with Trey McBride at tight end. Keep Green Bay or drop for the Browns, Seahawks, Miami Dolphins, or Chicago Bears. Danny, personally for me, I think I'm keeping the Green Bay Packers against Jacoby Brissett. Marvin Harrison Jr. concussed right now. Who knows what we're going to get from him in this game? They match up very well with the Cardinals. I do think if you're one of the things that I'm not a super big believer in, and obviously it's more of mental warfare, is not starting a defense not starting a defense when you have guys in your lineup that you're playing against. Like this situation he's going through right here with Trey McBride. Obviously, you start your stud in Trey McBride, but I think you start the best defense overall. Both can have good days. If Trey McBride has 8 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, that's a great day. And the Packers allow 10 points and they get a few sacks and a turnover, that's a great day. So both things can be true. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the only way I'd probably not start a defense like that is DFS because you're trying to maximize your points you can, trying to win as much money as you can. But regular season, you got to play your best players. I mean, Green Bay is a great defense. I mean, the guaranteed stats for defenses is always the sacks and teams that can turn the ball over. If you can got a team that can get 3 or 4 sacks, you've already made your week. I mean, and some leagues have a bonus where how many yards they give up and stuff like that. Then that gets into a little more in depth with the defenses. But if you can find a team that can produce turnovers, pressure the quarterback, and get sacks. I mean, a sack, fumble, return for a touchdown, that's 9 points right there in your hand, and that's just from one play. And your defense is set for the rest of the week. I go with Green Bay. If you really, really wanted to change, I'd probably lean the Browns second and probably the Bears third, but I'd stay with Green Bay as well.
100%. James in the chat, shout out to the Deontay Thornton Truther, Romo Dunze, or Marvin Harrison Jr. Danny, I know Rome had a down week last week, but Rome has been built in 1 year in Chicago. This guy's an elite receiver right now, and he is the true wide receiver one. I know DJ Moore had a nice game last week, but Romo Dunze is still going to be their guy, and I absolutely love the matchup against the New Orleans Saints, who are bottom 10 in the NFL against perimeter receivers in terms of fantasy production. We saw Keyshawn Boot have a really nice game against them last week. I think Romo Dunze is in for a bounce-back performance after he had a bad performance against the Commanders secondary. Marvin Harrison Jr. with Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball. can't say I'm as confident in that one. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with that too. Like Bissett seemed to look towards McBride a little bit more last week, so I don't know how much Harrison can really produce. Roman Duzay's the play right here on this week. The Bears should have their way with New Orleans. My spreadsheet actually has the Bears covering the spread in this one, even though it should be a close game. I'm leaning the Bears, and Roman Dunze is the one that makes that offense go for the receivers. DJ Moore is starting to show some age. He's dinged up a little bit too, so Roman Dunze is probably the play right here, and wait and see how Moore feels and gets better after concussion last week too. So
Yeah. All right, another one from him here. Michael Mayer or Xavier Worthy as a flex. I actually have a I know a lot of people will go Worthy for sure in this situation, but I know there's people definitely being like, "Oh, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers out, had a really good week last week." But I feel like he's more of a matchup dependent play with Bowers out, and this is a brutal matchup against the Chiefs, who have only allowed one touchdown to tight ends this year, top 5 in points per game allowed at the tight end position in fantasy football. Versus Worthy, plus matchup, has either had 100 total yards or a touchdown in 2 of his 3 games since returning, and he actually averages 3.13 yards per route run against single high coverage. And Patrick Mahomes' first read target share jumps to 25% for Worthy against that. And you know who loves to run that? The Las Vegas Raiders. So I absolutely love Worthy's matchup this week. And a lot of people are going to be talking about Rashee Rice, Rashee Rice. I think Worthy finds a way to get into the end zone. Should be pretty good values in a lot of sports books. What are your thoughts on both these guys heading into this week?
yeah, I agree with that too. Worthy's probably the play on this one. He's got the better upside on that part. The only thing I would just because talking from the DFS side, Mayer may be the only guy you may be able to play if you want to come back against the doing a chief stack. But Worthy's the play between those two. It's just the idea that his upside's just way higher than what Mayer's is, and his floor is probably even higher than what Mayer's probably ceiling is this week. So that's where I'm looking at that part too. So I'd probably go Worthy this week.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get to a few more questions here. Mike, shout out to you for following. We appreciate you tuning in tonight. Deontay Thornton, the GOAT, just spawned. We all know it's James. Low key, has to be James. Start the ghost of Puka Nakua or Trey Tucker, the terrorist stealing balls from the GOAT. Listen, I think I'd start the ghost of Puka Nakua. I don't know about you,
Yeah,
Danny, but
this week, yes.
anybody anybody that's against Deontay Thornton's breakout, I'm against, and I know my guy is against it as well.
Yep.
Let's get into some more questions here from the Junk Buster. Full PPR, start one RB, one flex, JCM, Jordan Mason, Michael Pittman, and Emeka Egbuka. Really feel like Egbuka will play. If not, I have Chase or I can't even say it because he spelled it different. Kate Otten or Sterling Shepard. Thanks, fellas. Personally, for me in this situation, I'm actually rolling with both running backs. I understand, we've talked about this a little bit on the show with Emeka Egbuka. I think that the initial reports of his injury potentially landing him on IR is more of an indication that he is either going to be limited in this one if he's healthy, or he's just not fully going to be ready to go and he's not going to play this week.
Mhm.
So if you have solid options, which clearly you do in this situation, I would lean with those guys. And I think Michael Pittman Jr. had a down week last week, has a tough matchup against Los Angeles this week, who've been really good against perimeter receivers and passing games in general. I'm not super high on him this week, but long term, sure. Jordan Mason faces an Eagles defense that we saw last week get exposed by the Giants run game. 24th, Danny, 24th
Mhm.
in yards after contact right now allowed. Not very good. They're not tackling well. They're allowing a lot of run games to keep the other team in the game. JCM, we talked about him earlier. Season high 67% snap share last week. Dominated in terms of carries. It's been really solid and improving every single week. And nobody else is there for the Commanders. So I like JCM and Jordan Mason. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Like I said, Bucos may not play, so that takes him off the list right then and there. And of those other three guys, I wouldn't start Kate Otten or Sterling Shepard. So I'd go JCM or Mason as my two guys. Pittman, if something would come up that say someone hurt his hamstring during the game, but I go the two running backs as well in this situation as well, just because their floor is higher and their ceilings is probably even higher than that too.
All right. Next question here from VB. Debo out. Who do I start? Vidal, Coker, or Golden, or pick one of the Commander wide receivers up. Danny?
That
Johnny
one's
Vidal.
easy.
Johnny Vidal.
Vidal, yes.
We talked about this earlier. Not sure if you were in here, but 100 plus total yards last week, receiving touchdown, had 18 of 24 possible carries for the Chargers. Faces a Colts defense that is a favorable matchup for fantasy running backs. I do think Jalen Coker is in for a sneaky week if you want to throw some bets on him. But I think out of those guys compared to, Coker or Golden, Kamani Vidal is the answer. And I think he's a solid play. Same thing here. Vidal, Spears, or Rico, it's Kamani Vidal. I
Vidal,
think you
yes.
go with him. And then if you're kind of deciding between who you want to start at flex between that grouping, hear me out, Danny. I know Rico Dowdle is going to be a favorite play for a lot of people. Jalen Coker is sneaky. He is
Yes.
sneaky this week.
Yep.
I'm telling you. So I think it would be interesting to see how that goes for sure. Plays out. Tyler here with a question: PPR trade Pickens and Vidal for Bucky and ETN. Not sure about Bucky's injury and Pickens' volume rest of the season with CD back. What I've heard with the Bucky Irving injury is that he will be out until week 10. So with Bucky, obviously he has one more game after this week, and then they get a bye week, and then week 10, that's when he's expected to be back. So if you are willing to basically part ways with Vidal's volume and you have running back depth, obviously you're getting ETN. Not sure what your wide receiver depth is, but I think that it's not a bad trade. Like Bucky, when he gets back, is going to be the clear bell cow back. We've seen the shift a little bit this year. ETN, I'm not super high on the rest of the season. I think he'll be a middle tier RB2, but I'm catching up on Vidal stock and George Pickens stock right now. I think I would go Bucky and ETN. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree as well on this one. Of course, ETN, like we said, you're not sure what his outcome or his production will be the rest of the season. You know what you get when Bucky comes back. He's going to be the number one guy. He can catch the ball, run the ball, scores touchdowns. What more do you want? Pickens, I still like Pickens for the rest of the season as a solid probably number 2 guy, but with CD there, CD's probably still going to receive probably the target share, majority of the target shares. And Vidal, I think it's just a situation. He's just holding over until Hampton comes back. When Hampton comes back, it's going to be his job anyway. So I think it's a better trade going with the 2 running backs.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically trading for Vidal's few weeks of viability for Bucky Irving after week 10. So if you're in a good spot record wise, I think it is a pretty good trade for you. I have Monty, Scat, Judkins, Chase, Odunze, Ladd, QJ, and Tet. Who do I play in a two running backs, 2 wide receivers plus a flex?
Well, I hope you started Chase. But I had him as number 1 pick in one league, and I traded him this week to the guy I'm playing against. So I don't know how smart of a manager was, but it was one of those situations.
You did not do that to yourself.
Yes, I did. But I needed a running back. I ended up getting Derrick Henry in that part of it. I know I'm eating him this week for not being able to run the ball, not being able to play. But I also got Ladd McConkey. It's a keeper league. McConkey's will turn into like a 6th rounder next year, so that kind of helps me a little bit on that part. I lost last week by half a point. I'm 2-4. I'm just hoping for anything from when Henry gets back. But yeah, I'm kicking myself watching what Chase did against me on Thursday night. But if you go with the other 2 guys, I'd go with Scat and Junkins and Chase and Odunze, and probably Ladd as their flex right there. I mean, Monty could be a good spot right there. I think maybe Ladd's breakout a little bit helped a lot. Who knows how healthy QJ is coming into this week too. Like Tet, we've already talked about Tet having a tough matchup against Sauce. I'd probably go Scat, Judkins, Chase, Odunze, and go with Ladd.
Yeah, I think I'm exactly following the lineup you had, and I know that this guy did play Jamar Chase, so he's doing just fine this week.
Yes, he is.
He could probably afford a bust performance or 2 from some of these guys. I like Scat and Judkins. I think the touchdown upside with both those guys. Obviously, Judkins facing a brutal Miami Dolphins run game should be in for a really nice game. And I think that the interesting debate between QJ and Ladd is, what do you think the Colts defense is good at? I think they're better at limiting explosives, and historically they've been a little bit worse against slot receivers. So I'm going Ladd over QJ. I think you start Rome Odunze no matter what in that situation. Michael Harvey here has 2 questions. Start Jalen Hurts or Caleb, and why? Danny, I'll let you start.
Well, I'll answer the Hurts part for you. It's the tush push. Caleb has a nice matchup and stuff. You still got to go with the Super Bowl reigning MVP right there with what because of the fact of what he can do. I mean, he's still running the ball. He's got a chance for the tush push, and like you said earlier, he could throw the ball for 130 yards, has a passing touchdown or on a rushing touchdown. He's got 20 points. And if he has anything else after that, you're pushing 30 points, and that's a great week for a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I think that the interesting part about Caleb and Hurts is I love Caleb Williams' upside this week. I really do. I
Yeah.
think that against the Saints, like it's a really good matchup, but you have the weather situation. I talked about this a little bit earlier with Hurts that his floor is so safe. Like the guy gets pushed in the end zone on a weekly basis. He could throw for 130 yards and a touchdown, still has 20 points. And this week against Minnesota, where they have been really good against perimeter receivers, and obviously the Eagles have, two straight losses, have struggled on offense the entire year. They're still the more talented team, and I think their running game matches up well with a Minnesota defense that has struggled against that part of it. I think that Jalen Hurts could have 30 to 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown in this one, and also maybe have close to 200 passing yards. That alone makes him a top 4 quarterback automatically. Caleb, on the other hand, I think that a lot of people are in a different boat where they don't have as good of an option as Jalen Hurts, but Caleb is great upside this week. I mean, facing a Saints defense that has struggled against quarterbacks the entire year, going to be a solid play this week. Don't worry about the weather conditions, but out of these two, you got to go Jalen Hurts. And then his second question here, Scat or Swift, Mason Taylor or Fannin? Go ahead, Danny.
I like all 4 of them this week, so I'm not really sure on that. I would lean Swift and probably Fannin. But if you went the other way, I have no problem with starting with Scat and Taylor this week. I mean, it's one of those situations. You don't even have the lesser of 2 evils. You've got 4 great plays right there. You can just kind of flip a coin and choose. But I like Swift probably just a little bit more than Scat. But I can start Scat no problem at all. Same thing with Fannin. I like him a little bit more than I do Mason. But I can also see Mason having a huge day too because of the way that offense is set up with Wilson being out this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little different grain. I'm gonna go DeAndre Swift in this one. I think that the Saints' rush defense is way worse than the Denver Broncos' rush defense. And while I like Scat as a player, he's been really good around the goal line, top 8 in the NFL in red zone touches. Like the guy's been really good. He's not like I don't know how to. He kind of reminds me of 2022 Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
His efficiency metrics stink, but he like passes the eye test. He'll break a tackle kind of and fall forward. Like that's what Scat does. And it helps that he has Jackson Dart. He's been really good in the red zone this year. But I think against better defenses like the Denver Broncos, especially against the ground game, the Eagles were kind of a fake tough matchup. They've been bad against the run this year. The Broncos are going to be a tough test. And while I do have Scat starting as a low-end RB2, and I've told people to start Scat tonight, I think I have DeAndre Swift a little bit higher than him overall in my rankings because the matchup against New Orleans is much better. We know that despite his injury, I expect him to play his normal workload. I know he popped up on the report. He has a good receiving role, has had multiple catches in every game this year, and he was really efficient in the ground game. The Bears actually ranked top 10 in the NFL in run block win rate. He has a good offensive line. If Swift just hits the right holes, he's in for a nice day. So I'm going Swift, and then I talked about it earlier. Love both these tight ends, like you mentioned, but Harold Fannin is the answer. Really good first read share with Dylan Gabriel pushing 20% to that mark. No Njoku for the first time in a game all season long this year. The Dolphins have been brutal against tight ends. Got to go with him this week. Let's see here. Dan is the next one. I made 2 trades this year prior to week 5, and now I think I'm cooked. First, Javonte for Devontae, and a second, Jamar Chase and Dak for Josh Allen and Ramondre. Is my season cooked?
See, he's not the only guy trading away Jamar Chase. So I don't feel as bad now.
I ended up on fantasy receipts for saying sell Jamar Chase before watching one game with Joe Flacco, and it was just like, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I literally
exactly. It's still Joe Flacco. I mean, it was a classic game. The Steelers lost a game they should have won, and they do it every year. I know me and Joe was talking about this just this morning or yesterday morning about that going on. So I don't know. I mean, Jamar's one of the best receivers in the league, so you got to agree to that. Let's see here. First, he gave it to Javonte, made 2 trades. I don't think he's cooked. I mean, you lose Javonte. I mean, that Dallas offense is kind of cooking right now, so that hurts on that part of it. But you got Devontae Adams, who's probably solid, probably the best number 2 receiver in the league. And then you still got Josh Allen. I mean, Ramonde can't hold on to the ball, but you still have Josh Allen who could score just as many points as Chase and Dak does in a week too. So I don't think you're cooked. It doesn't look good right now, but we still have we're only a third of the way through the season, and we probably see what we're week 7, about halfway through the regular season for fantasy. So you're not cooked yet. I mean, there's a chance you can turn it around by the end of the regular season for the fantasy part of it.
Listen, if we were looking at week 7 in a nutshell,
Mhm.
I'd say you have great matchups this week. I mean, Devontae has no Puka this week against a really bad Jaguars secondary. Ramondre Stevenson gets a Titans team that can't stop the run at all this year. And then you just have Josh Allen who's on a bye week. I know it's tough, but those two guys have good matchups this week. And while I do think you probably lost both these trades, it's not the end of the world. There's definitely moves to be made, like Emmanuel Wilson potentially sitting on the waiver wire right now, waiting to win you a week, or players like Jalen Coker coming off of IR that no one really knows about that could be really good. And I think there is opportunities to be made. Uh, if you do want a little bit more personal help, send me a DM on Twitter at blitzlink_. I'm willing to give you a free membership to turn this thing around and make you feel a little bit better about your season going forward. Brennan in the chat, should I trade Egabuka for Nico Collins? I have Baker. This one is close. You know what? I'm going to say Nico Collins is a better side of this. I would do it. And here's why.
Yeah.
I have no clue if Emeka Egabuka is going to be healthy this week, first off. Nico Collins has already had his bye week. And I understand Emeka Egabuka has been elite this year. Exactly met the expectations I had for him in the draft, if even more. He's been great.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Collins is still a really good football player, and I'm sure that people are frustrated that he hasn't had the ceiling that he's had in the past. But I mean, Egabuka is going to get Mike Evans healthy back. Chris Godwin's going to be back. There's going to be a little bit more target competition for him, and the Bucs schedule is going to get a little bit more difficult as the season goes on. So if I had to pick one rest of the season, I do have Nico Collins higher. I would go with him, and I understand you have Baker and you like the stack, but Nico Collins, I just have a little bit higher.
I agree. I mean, he's the number 1 guy. He is the guy in Houston. The young guys haven't stepped up yet for them to find a second option they can throw the ball to, and Schultz hasn't really had a great year at tight end. So Collins is still the guy in Houston. Mecca, I love him, just the upside he's had so far this season, but Evans is coming back. Godwin's going to come back eventually. I mean, the two Johnson & Johnson played well last week, so maybe they get them a little more chances to touch the ball for gadget plays or something like that too. So there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. And Baker's one of those guys too. He can feed everybody. I mean, he doesn't really zone in on one guy and feed him the whole game.
Yeah.
He spreads the ball around, and that's what makes him so efficient and makes that Bucs offense so efficient.
Yeah, 100%. Michael, appreciate you guys. We always want to provide them detailed analysis to make sure you guys feel comfortable with what we're telling you. Dougie G, shout out to the OG Blitz Goat. Tough one here. Have Egabuka. Should I see if he plays or pivot to Woody Marks or just go with Fannin in full PPR? See, here's the tricky one now. I've been telling people to not do it, but I think in this situation, you see what you can maneuver on your bench. And if you can see a guy like Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson, and potentially plug and play in your lineup this week, I think you take that risk because although I love Fannin, the upside potentially of Emeka Egbuka if he plays is intriguing. So I don't know about you, Danny. What do you think?
I'm probably still going to leave Fannin on this one. Just the fact that the weather doesn't really scare me that much for his position in that offense and stuff. And the way Dylan Gabriel's throwing the ball, he's been more of a quick, get the ball off his hands quick type of pass plays they've set up for him and stuff. And that just bodes well into the tight ends of that offense. I know the upside's probably a little bit higher with Emeka, but does he play? If he doesn't play, I'd rather have Fannin. So I'd go Fannin on this one.
Yeah, 100%. Skip to top 5 here. You got half PPR, Marv or Brees, and then Love or Knicks. I'm going to go with Brees Hall. I think it's a good matchup against the Panthers. And I know the Panthers are a sneaky good run defense, but the added ability of Justin Fields' legs, if you are not a top 5 run defense in the NFL, I feel confident that Brees Hall can be efficient. And we've seen since the Braylon Allen injury, Brees Hall's snaps have significantly increased. He's been playing more. Feel really confident in him. He's actually a buy candidate that I like right now. They have an upcoming favorable schedule. I don't know if the Jets trade him or not, but I think it's interesting. Then Jordan Love or Bo Nix. not even a question for me this week, Jordan Love. The Giants defense has been really good and had a lot of quarterbacks struggling against them over the last 3 weeks. Their pass rush is one of the better units in the NFL. Bo Nix ranks as one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL in hero throw rate, expected completion percentage, yards per attempt. Like Bo Nix has been bad, just bad at quarterback this year. Has been bailed out with a really good defense. Jordan Love, top 5 in EPA among quarterbacks right now. Like really good matchup against the Cardinals. I like it. I like Green Bay and Love, and then I'm going with Brees Hall. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Brees Hall, and I go with Love as well too. Nick's has been so kind of up and down. I mean, he's played better at home, and it's home game for him. They're going to have a big lead, but yeah, Love's the better play on this situation right here. And Brees Hall, one thing that's nice about him, he's one of the better receiving running backs out of the backfield through his career, and with Garrett Wilson being out for this game, he may see a couple more opportunities, and that Taylor may see as well. But uh, Hall's probably the guy you really want to have going forward. I don't think they trade him, just the fact that they had some good matchups going on, and Braylon Allen getting hurt kind of hurts their trade value with him and stuff. But his opportunities of receiving the ball out of the backfield is going to be huge this week, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Who is the Commanders' wide receiver one tomorrow? Luke McCaffrey or Chris Moore? I'm going to say Luke McCaffrey. I know Chris Moore had a few big catches last week against the Bears, but it felt like that was more of a matchup-based, move. The Cowboys have better perimeter corners. I know Diggs has a concussion. He'll miss this one, but they have better perimeter corners versus the Bears, right? They kind of are mixing and matching without Jalen Johnson right now on the outside. I think McCaffrey is probably the better play of those two. Do you disagree?
I agree. Yeah, it's Luke. He scored touchdowns in 3 of the last 4 games, and the one game he didn't score a touchdown, he caught a 50-yard bomb from Daniels when he first came back when he played against the Chargers. So it's Luke. I know Moore's played more snaps than he has since Terry McLaurin got hurt, but it's the upside. I mean, he scores touchdowns, and if you got a guy that can score touchdowns, that's what you're looking for in fantasy football, DFS wise or regular fantasy as well.
Yep, 100%. CD in the chat. Shout out to CD Lamb for taking the time tonight to pop in the chat. Should he trade Rico Dowdle, his former teammate, for Quinshon Judkins? Don't even hesitate.
Nope.
Do it right now. Do it right now. There's no questions about it. Get Quinshon Judkins, trade Rico Dowdle. Right?
Yes, a heartbeat.
All right, 100%. Moving on. Okay, rate this team. 12-team PPR. Start 7 and moves to make. Jaden Daniels, Brees Hall, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Chase Brown, RJ Harvey, Zach Charbonnet, a lot of running backs, CeeDee Lamb, JSN, Egabuka, Kraft, Mason Taylor, Mooney, Watson, RB room kind of cooked.
I personally love that team.
For a 12-team league, this thing's cracked. This is a cracked 12-team. Yeah,
he's pretty
I don't
stacked.
think you got anything to worry about here.
No.
This is a very good team. So this is an A. This is an A.
Yep.
Easy A. Okay. Start 1 tight end, Kraft or Mason Taylor. Dang it. Why do you put me in this situation? I love both of them this week, but it is Tucker Kraft. You go with the guy that is a yak king. Mason Taylor, I love it, but he is my tight end 8. Yes, he's my tight end 8. I have Kraft as my tight end 5. Danny, what are your thoughts?
I know we said Kraft earlier and stuff, but I don't mind going to Mason Taylor. It's one of the situations. It's a coin flip for me on this one. I like Kraft. He just hasn't really produced since his big game a few weeks ago. But Taylor, it's just a situation this week where there's no Garrett Wilson, and I think Taylor has probably a big breakout game. So, but if you had to go season long, it's still Kraft. This week, I'd probably lean Taylor a little bit, but Kraft's not far behind him.
Yeah, 100%. All right, cool man in the chat. Hi, would I drop Kendre Miller or Darnell Mooney? I need to activate Mike Evans from IR, and should I risk it and start Mike Evans or start Devonta Smith and play it safe? If Mike Evans is healthy, he is playing in full. I would not be worried about that. If they're going to activate him, he is going to play. So activate him, and I'm dropping Darnell Mooney. He's been struggling in the field this year. Kendre Miller actually has some upside this year, especially if Alvin Kamara gets traded. Miller has played close to 50% of snaps over the past few weeks. He's handled 8 to 10 carries over the last 3 weeks, 40-plus rushing yards in those games. So Kendre Miller, I think, is the better stash. Do you agree, Danny?
I agree, yes.
Okay, yeah. And then with Devonta Smith, I would not trust him at all this week against
Minnesota. This week.
Okay, we're on the same page, Ben.
Yep.
Start one wide receiver, one flex, full PPR. Tet, Waddle, Diggs, Judkins. I'm going Judkins against a really bad Miami Dolphins defense. And then I'm riding on the other side of that match. Oh, man. I'm going Stephon Diggs. Screw it. I'm going Stephon Diggs. I have Tet low this week because of the Sauce Gardner matchup. He hasn't allowed over 55 yards in coverage to a receiver he's shadowed this year. Jalen Waddle has a brutal weather matchup this week where the down the field plays might get screwed over. I'm going Diggs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Junkins as well. I mean, just the matchups, it's too good to not to ignore him this week. With that group of three, I go Diggs as well. I mean, Ted's got the tough matchup. Waddle's got the weather. Diggs is a safer play.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Jelly of the Month. Welcome back, my guy. Trade my wide receiver 5, Charbonnet, who has a bye week next week for Jordan on a current. Yeah, do it. Do it.
Heartbeat.
Do it. I would 100% do it, especially if your quarterback is Bo Nix right now. You definitely need to make that move and go capitalize, get yourself a quarterback. Don't even have to talk about it much. Really good move right there. Jerry Jeudy or Kendrick Bourne? Kendrick Bourne. Bourne has been really good this year, especially with the injuries the 49ers receivers have had. I know people are worried about the Falcons as a matchup in general, but Kyle Shanahan knows how to get guys open, and Kendrick Bourne will find some volume to be good and viable in this matchup. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And I know people may be concerned that Kittle's coming back for Bourne, but the Falcons are also one of the better teams against tight ends in this season. So I'd go Bourne. No, that's an easy choice. And plus the weather in Cleveland for Jeudy. So Bourne's a play.
All right. Final questions of the night here. Dan Rue, full PPR start one and flex and okay. Ramondre, Michael Carter, Marvin Harrison Jr., Hunter Henry, or Waller. Thank you in advance. I am actually going to go Ramondre Stevenson in this one. And people are going to be like, dude, Ramondre Stevenson, he sucks at football. He fumbles. The Patriots are going to win by 21 points this week. They are going to run the ball 25 times, and they are going to get the volume to Ramondre and Travion. If Antonio Gibson was still there, probably not starting Ramondre Stevenson, but I think it's a matchup where they will be, have a positive game script, and they'll have to rely on their running backs more than they've had to in the past few weeks. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that too. I see no problem starting Ramondre with that chance of them having that big game right there. The other 4 guys, there's issues with all of them. Carter splits time. Marvin Harrison's coming off concussion. Hunter Henry's been kind of lackluster the last couple of weeks, and Waller's got a tough matchup against Cleveland. So Ramondre's a play.
All right, here we go. Final few here. This team is a 14-team league here from Maxwell, Daniel Jones, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, Xavier Worthy, Kendrick Bourne, Noah Fant, Detroit Lions defense, and Chris Boswell. I think it's a solid B.
Yeah.
I think it's a B
team, yeah.
I think that the biggest thing that obviously 14-team leagues are tough at the tight end position. I think Noah Fant's been better with Joe Flacco, but finding a way to upgrade that. I think your wide receiver 2 is Bourne, finding a way to capitalize him on potentially being, that guy. He has another big week. Sell high on him for a team that desperately needs a wide receiver. And a guy that I would try to trade for maybe is like, package some bench guys for Jalen Coker, a guy who can be good in PPR the rest of the year. Find a way to get Emmanuel Wilson off of waivers this week. Should help improve that team just a little bit. But I think your running backs definitely give you an advantage on a weekly basis for sure.
Yeah.
My wide receiver and tight end are Rice, DK, Nico, and Kittle. Keep 2, Jennings, Waller, and Fannin.
Fanning, yes. The other 2. I mean, I know the weather and the matchup's bad. I'm going Waller. Jennings just hasn't produced this year. He's been dinged up, and supposedly he's playing with broken ribs, and I don't know how a wide receiver can play with broken ribs and be have any success in fantasy.
Yeah, no, I would keep Harold Fannin too. I like that. I think that Jennings, it's tough because wide receiver depth's a little bit more important. Honestly, I would drop Waller out of that group. I think that Jennings at least gives you a little bit of upside rest of the season if he gets healthier and you need more receiver depth if you only have Rice, DK, and Nico.
Yeah, that's true on that,
So it gives you a little bit more depth there. I know Waller's had a good few weeks. And honestly, you probably try to trade him. Like I would recommend trying to trade him and maybe upgrade that backup wide receiver position instead of just, holding on to all those guys. So I would highly recommend doing that. Ramondre Stevenson or Kamani Vidal. Kamani Vidal still. I think the matchup against the Colts is too good to pass up. A must start basically in all formats for a lot of teams right now. Ramondre, I know I'm high on him this week, but still got to go Kamani. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, last one of the night. Start one. CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones, or Sam Darnold. Oh,
Ugh.
I think I
Jones.
still go Daniel Jones. I'm not
Yeah,
high
Jones.
on Daniel Jones this week, but I think that Jones is the guy you go. Darnold's going to have a tough one against Houston's defense.
Yeah.
They're blanketing everybody. CJ Stroud in a similar situation against Seattle, so I think it's very tough for them. I go Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones just been good. I think you got to rely on Jones just producing like he has this year, and I do think he has a safe floor
Yeah.
because of his legs, which the other two guys don't have as much of. So I think you go that
Agree
way.
on that one. Yep, 100%.
All right, Scar here. Start two. Kyron Williams, Judkins, or Javante Williams. Ooh, this one's tough.
Gosh. Oh, Junkins is the easy one. It comes down to the other two now, the William brothers.
Dude, honestly, I think I bet I would play all three of these. Like if you
Oh,
have
yeah,
a,
if you could, I'd play all three easily.
you have a
Easily.
flex spot, I would play all three of these guys because all of them have great matchups. I would go Javante Williams though because the Commanders' run defense is brutal right now. DeAndre Swift looked good against them last week. That
Sure.
says a lot. Kyron Williams is facing the Jags, who have struggled against the run this year a lot as well at times, especially with no Puka Nakua. Like, find a way to get all these guys in. I
Yeah.
have Williams. I have both Williams higher than I do Judkins this week. All right, final one of the night: Brees Hall, Chase Brown, and Henderson. Outlook rest of the season. What to expect? I also got Judkins, who's the only guy I trust really, and Harvey. I think Harvey has more upside than Henderson
Yeah.
right now. Henderson feels like he's just stuck. Like, I don't know what to say. The Patriots coaching staff just won't give him the opportunities he needs to succeed. And I think Harvey has a better chance of taking more snaps because his coach literally said he needs to find ways to get him the ball. I've never heard Josh McDaniels or Mike Vrabel say that about Travion Henderson over the course of this year. Chase Brown, I think, is trending in the right direction. Looked really good last night. I think Joe Flacco helps in general. I did a film breakdown on it. And I think that under center really helped that running game. They looked a lot better moving the ground on that one. And then Brees Hall, favorable rest of the season schedule. So it looks really good for all these guys. You agree?
I agree. Yeah, Henderson's part of your weakest link right there. Just the fact you don't know what the coaching staff's going to do with him, even though he's the best running back there.
All right, 100%. Hey, listen, guys, really appreciate all you guys tuning in to this first good Wi-Fi stream. Not me on the road, the first time in a few weeks. We will be back next Sunday in the morning, so make sure you guys have the reminder out for that one. Rapid fire here. If Jacobs is out, JCM or Emmanuel Wilson, JCM. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this, and me and Danny
Subscribe, guys.
catch you guys next time.
It's in there somewhere. There we go. There we go. Right there. Subscribe.
See y'all.